Shakespeare beyond doubt. All the authors so devout, but when logic hits a gap, they just fill it up with crap. His men and his women, boys and girls, deliver up phrases like they're pearls. And why do they speak like noble girls? I'm beginning to have my doubts. I used to defy both heat and frost, defending the creed at any cost. But why does it all have labor sauce? I'm beginning to have my doubts. Yes, I know it's blasphemy to suspect faux history. Is it to be or not to be? Who's the candidate? Edward de Vere. Who said something with Shakespeare doesn't fit, since Shakespeare was so illiterate. Stratfordian claims now sound like I'm now totally having doubts, even starting to like Brussels sprouts. I am way past just having some doubts.
Welcome to Shakespeare Illuminated, maybe again. I am Michael Delahoyde, Professor Emeritus of English and podcaster. You'll be taking on the role of Camillo. I think you're our second messenger. Anyway, here at Shakespeare Illuminated, we seek to appreciate the brilliance of Shakespeare's works, which is always especially illuminating when we give proper credit to Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford, using the pen name Shakespeare instead of to the illiterate grain merchant Shakespeare of Stratford. This is the best answer to the long-standing so-called Shakespeare authorship question. For much more on this perspective, this and other plays, check out my website, michaeldelahoyde.org, Michael Delahoyde, all one word. Shakespeare Illuminated was initially created with support by the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship, Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship, all one word, .org. Check us out, become a member. And we have good friends across the pond with the De Vere Society, deveresociety.co.uk. Check us out, become a member. The show is currently being sponsored by the Shakespeare Foundation, the Shakespeare Foundation, all one word, .org. Check us out. Try not to freak out. Things are happening. Here are some general questions we might want to address with this play. The play is titled first, The Winter's Tale. Seems pretty random, since we jump 16 years in the middle and spend half the play in the spring. So what up with that? I can understand the study in Jealousy Gone Wild when it's Othello, but where does this come from? And third, are you kidding me with this fantasy dream ending? A statue animated or a resurrection or 16 years hiding out? What? Well, let's just get shake illuminated here. The Winter's Tale. In a generic way, Winter's Tales are supposed to be like old wives' tales, we are told, diverting entertainment largely for the amusement of women, children, and the old. Thank you very much. Certainly the implausibilities in this play sometimes are given that sort of soppy, patronizing explanation. But the better explanation, I think, is that when we're thinking like Shakespeare bilingually, in French, the Winter's Tale might be rendered the Conte d'Hiver, the account of winter. Not the histoire, not the story of winter, but the Conte d'Hiver. Why is that significant? Sounds like Count de Vere. Yeah, but we're talking about the Earl of Oxford. Yeah, but the English retained the Anglo-Saxon title Earl, whereas the continent, you would be introduced as the Count and Countess Dracula. In England, you would be introduced as the Count and Countess Oxford or de Vere. So it seems like even in the title here, Shakespeare is desperate to announce his identity, even though it has to be suppressed. As for sources, The standard explanation is that you go to this Robert Greene sloppy euphuistic prose romance called Pandosto in 1588 as the source for this play. But there are such differences here, and the pattern is not consistent with what we see elsewhere. If you're locked into that crazy Stratfordian time frame of the plays, then you have to come up with these crazy explanations. But what if we had a source that was an earlier version of this play, since this play shows all the signs of some massive revision? That Greene, who was part of Oxford's Circle, by the way, Greene did a prose translation of that, and somehow later on, Shakespeare got around to revising this pretty significantly. It's a similar pattern to something that's even more scattered in Pericles and possibly some of these other plays. Well, recorded performance comes in 1611. So when there's an attempt to say that there's a relevance in this, in the death of the young prince, with Prince Henry in England in 1612, that's got to be crap. And do not even start me on Hamnet and that rubbish. Um, Here's a typical Stratfordian attempt. The play's author, Shakespeare, no, had also lost a son, had married off a daughter. Hamnet Shakespeare died at age 11 in 1596. Susanna married Dr. Hall in 1607. Yet there is no specific reason to read this play as any way autobiographical, except in the sense that all artistic work is part of the autobiography of its creator. Then why in hell did you start out with all this nonsense that's not relevant to? Because there's a winter night pastime registered in 1594 before little Hambone's tragic death. Now, some early Oxfordians detected some connections to Sir Walter Raleigh and some other matters, and if they're relevant, we'll get into them. But um, certainly the revisions we will want to try to explain too. So let's go. In Act One of the play, you have these two courtiers. One is Camillo. We are in Sicilia. He's a Sicilian lord. He's talking to a Bohemian lord because the king of Bohemia, Polixenes, is visiting his friend Leontes here in Sicilia. It seems like an extraneous scene. They're just rhetorically showy. They're giving this ambassadorial eloquence and etiquette to each other, and it seems pretty extreme. For example, they talk about the young Mamilius, this prince, young kid, who's Leontes' son. And the insistence is, oh, there's old people in this realm who are just lingering on, waiting for him to become king. And the question is, okay, so they would die otherwise? Yeah, yeah, but there's such a hope about this kid. So there is a succession concern here, as there is typically in Shakespeare. There may be a pun on Sicilia too, because Regnum Sicilianum was the snide name given on the continent and by some English to the bureaucratic system where the Cecils were um, in charge of the kingdom, essentially. So Sicilia, the Cecil land, is in fact more wintry, actually. We're not really set for certain in any season, but it does seem to be a sterile land, whereas when we much later on transition to Bohemia, it's a lot more fertile and active and joyous. So possibly this purpose of this over the top rhetoric of these two is that the insincerity hides truth, and that's going to become a problem when everybody is so polite in the next scene. This is where we get introduced to the main characters of Sicilia. So in our first clip, we've got Polixenes with his very first lines at the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2, talking politely to Leontes, and everybody's so happy. We're hoping that Polixenes will extend his visit a while, but he feels like he's got to get back to his kingdom. So let's see this exchange in our first clip.
9 changes of the watery star hath been the shepherd's note, since we have left our throne without a burthen. Time as long again would be filled up, my brother, with our thanks. And yet we should, for perpetuity, go hence in debt. And therefore, like a cipher, yet standing in rich place, I multiply with one, we thank you, many thousands more that go before it.
Stay your thanks a while, and pay them when you part.
Sir, that's tomorrow. I am questioned by my fears of what may chance or breed upon our absence, that may blow no sleeping winds at home to make us say, this is put forth too truly. Besides, I have stayed to tire your royalty.
Tongue-tied, our queen? Speak you.
I had thought, sir, to have held my peace until you have drawn oaths from him not to stay. You, sir, charge him too coldly. Tell him you were sure all in Bohemia as well. Dissatisfaction the bygone day proclaimed. Say this to him. He's beat from his best ward.
Well said, Hermione.
To tell he longs to see his son were strong. But let him say so then, and let him go. But let him swear so, and he shall not stay. We'll thwack him hence with distaffs. Yet, of your royal presence, I'll adventure the borrow of a week. When at Bohemia you take my lord, I'll give him my commission to let him there a month behind the jest, per fixed first parting. Yet, good deed, Leontes, I love thee not a jar of the clock behind. What lady she her lord? You'll stay?
No, madam.
Nay, but you will.
I may not, verily.
Verily, you put me off with limber vows, but I, though you would seek to unsphere the stars with oaths, should yet say, sir, no going. Verily, you shall not go. A lady's virily's as potent as a lord's. Will you go yet? Force me to keep you as a prisoner, not like a guest. So you shall pay your fees when you depart and save your thanks. How say you? My prisoner or my guest? By your dread verily, one of them you shall be.
Your guest, then, madam. To be your prisoner should import offending, which is for me less easy to commit than you to punish.
Not your jailer, then, but your kind hostess.
Our very first statement about 9 months is just how long he's lingered there. But once you pair that with some other terms here, like burthen and multiply and breed, you wonder if some of this ends up working subliminally on Leontes, because very soon we're going to wonder what is his motivation for going off the deep end here. Hermione and Polixenes also talk about the youth of Polixenes and Leontes, how they frisked in the sun and they were so innocent and all. But their private conversation is interrupted immediately by Leontes wondering, did you win him over? Have you convinced Polixenes to stay? Here's what happens in this exchange in our second clip.
Is he won yet?
He'll stay, my lord.
At my request he would not. Hermione, my dearest, thou never spokest to better purpose.
Never?
Never but once.
What? Have I twice said well? When was't before? I prithee tell me. My last good deed was to entreat his stay. What was my first? It has an elder sister, or I mistake you. Oh, would her name were Grace! But once before I spoke to the purpose. When? Nay, let me have it. I long.
Why, that was when 3 crabbed months had soured themselves to death ere I could make thee open thy white hand and clap thyself my love. Then didst thou utter, I am yours for ever.
His grace indeed. Why, lo you now, I have spoke to the purpose twice. The one for ever earns a royal husband, the other for some time a friend.
Too hot, too hot! To mingle friendship far is mingling bloods. I have tremor cordis on me, my heart dances, but not for joy, not joy. This entertainment may a free face put on, derive a liberty from heartiness, from bounty, fertile bosom, and well become the agent it may, I grant. But to be paddling palms and pinching fingers, as now they are, and making practice smiles, as in a looking glass, and then to sigh as 'twere the more to the dear. Oh, that is entertainment my bosom likes not, nor my brows.
Looking back on becoming engaged with words like 3 crabbed months had soured themselves to death, that's pretty dark. And we see that Leontes has flipped, talking about sputtering about paddling palms and pinching fingers and suspecting them of having an affair. Well, it is true that in romances, motivation is usually absent. But in this case, it's a little bit more realistic than typical romances. And this guy is said to be operating like an Othello who is his own Iago. That's Harold Bloom plagiarizing Harold Goddard. Exact same wording. So it's possible that Leontes suspected his wife before the beginning of the play. We'll find out that she actually is pregnant. And maybe we just didn't know that because of that veneer of extreme courtesy. But in any case, he calls his son over, Mamilius, has an exchange with the boy. Maybe he's looking for signs of illegitimacy in the child, too. But there's a lot of business about smut on his nose. And Oxfordians early on had said, well, here's an interesting incident. Sir Walter Raleigh was with the Queen, and she noticed a smudge on his nose, and she was going to use her handkerchief, but he anticipated this and removed it himself. Fascinating, right? Somebody clearly didn't have a very active day to report to the old diary on that. Well, okay, it is true that Raleigh was the son of Walter Raleigh of Fardell, and the word Fardell occurs 7 times in Shakespeare, 6 times in this play. So maybe the original version of this did have something to do with Sir Walter Raleigh. Leontes calls his son Captain. That might be included in there. And there's also a mention relevant to Elizabeth of Leontes saying, he's still Virgiling on her palms, looking at them, playing handsies. Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, played the virginals, the keyboard kind, and some say she played the virginal too, in another regard. Well, Leontes is his fanatical state of mind. Hermione and Polixenes recognize there's something amiss with this guy. He passes it off as merely nostalgia for he was thinking of 23 years ago. And this is the first of 3 completely arbitrary instances of the number 23. When he was looking at Mamilius, we don't need to know exactly how old everybody is, but it is one of the peculiarities of this play that begs for an answer, and I don't know that I'll be able to give you one soon. Anyway, Leontes often now is going to just be ranting and getting himself deeper and deeper into his paranoia about this. So in this next clip, he rants to himself about cuckoldry being absolutely pandemic in the world. So here's our 3rd clip. Here's Leontes crazed.
There have been, or I am much deceived, cuckolds ere now. And many a man there is, even at this present, now, while I speak this, holds his wife by the arm, that little thinks she has been sluiced in his absence, and his pond fished by his next neighbour, by Sir Smile, his neighbour. Nay, there's comfort in it, while other men have gates, and those gates opened as mine, against their will. Should all despair that have revolted wives, the 10th of mankind would hang themselves. Physic for it there is none. It is a bawdy planet that will strike where 'tis predominant. And 'tis powerful, think it, from east, west, north, and south. Be it concluded, no barricado for a belly. Know it, it will let in and out the enemy with bag and baggage. Many thousands on us have this dis-ease, and feel it not.
Leontes grills his attendant Camillo about the events that were witnessed a few moments ago between those two, and assumes that rumors are already circulating about his cutlery. But he cannot get Camillo to confirm any of this, who is very doubtful that he's in his right mind, which sends Leontes into another fit. Camillo says basically, you're making something out of nothing. And then Leontes flips out over the word nothing, which those of you who follow me on TwitFace know that I've done some more work on the significance of nothing in Shakespeare. So here's what Leontes rails about against Camillo in our fourth clip here.
Whispering no thing, is leaning cheek to cheek, is meeting noses, kissing with inside lip, stopping the career of laughing with a sigh, a note infallible of breaking honesty, horsing foot on foot, skulking in corners, wishing clocks more swift. Hours, minutes, noon, midnight, and all eyes blind with a pin and web, but theirs only that would unseen be wicked. Is this no thing? Why then the world and all that's in it is no thing. The covering sky is nothing, Bohemia nothing, my wife is nothing, nor nothing have these nothings. If this is no thing.
Well, Leontes orders Camillo as Polixenes' cupbearer to poison the guy, and Leontes has the occasion to use the phrase against Camillo, go rot. And who knew, we young Delahoydes all those years ago were quoting Shakespeare at each other. But this poisoning talk claims some of the early Oxfordians might allude to Elizabeth's plans of doing away with the Scottish Queen Mary Stuart, but she's not the only one. More on that later. All right, Camillo goes to Polixenes, who asks him why Leontes is being so weird and hostile. And we start using these terms again, like breeding and conceive and satisfy and born. And at this point, we're thinking, please stop doing that, because we are now sensitized to that kind of language too. Eventually, Camillo confesses that he's been asked to murder Polixenes, and he takes the high road in that in De Vere's Geneva Bible, there is clear attention paid to 1 Samuel, a scriptural passage about anointed kings and the horror of thinking that they could be murdered. And this consideration comes up in Macbeth and other plays too. Well, the plan is to slip away, and even though Polixenes agrees that maybe Leontes is out of his mind, and maybe even he implies the queen is in danger, still, let's get out of here and save our skins. So a little bit ignoble, but here is the end of Act 1, our fifth clip, Polixenes deciding to go home.
I saw his heart in his face. My ships are ready, and my people did expect my hence departure 2 days ago. This jealousy is for a precious creature. As she's rare, must it be great? And as his person's mighty, must it be violent? Unless he does conceive he is dishonored by a man which ever professed to him, why his revenges must in that be made more bitter. Fear o'ershades me. Good expedition be my friend, and comfort the gracious queen. Part of his theme, but nothing of his ill-ta'en suspicion. Come, let us avoid.
Getting back to Hermione, exasperated, it seems, by her son Mamilius, leaves him temporarily with her ladies in waiting. And there's a bit of an exchange, I guess, of wit. There's talk about black eyebrows and the shape of them, and it's completely enigmatical also. Maybe it's an instance of a glimpse of the Dark Lady and Vavasor, but who knows? At least the women allude to Hermione's pregnancy, so we have that asserted. When Hermione returns, Mamilius is going to tell a story. And he says, a sad tale's best for winter, which is about all we got to go on otherwise for the title. I have one of sprites and goblins, and he begins to whisper this story to her. There was a man dwelt in a churchyard, and then it fades out because other characters come in and the main discussion takes over. We're never going to hear from this kid again. His story, like the story he's telling, is going to be cut short. And one kind of fanciful notion I got from somewhere is that perhaps the rest of the play is like Mamilius's dream because it has no Mamilius, similar to Bottom's dream because it has no Bottom. The thought being in dream theory that you don't see yourself in your dream, you see everybody else, whether that's true or not. But I don't really know where that might get us with the notion applied here. In any case, Leontes has heard about Polixenes and Camillo sneaking off, and he interprets this as a confirmation of everything that he thought all along. So here he is congratulating himself on detecting treachery in our sixth clip.
Blessed am I in my just censure, in my true opinion. Alack for lesser knowledge, how accursed in being so blessed. There may be in the cup a spider steeped, and one may drink, depart, and yet partake no venom, for his knowledge is not infected. But if one present the abhorred ingredient to his eye, make known how he hath drunk, he cracks his gorge, his sides with violent hefts. I have drunk and seen the spider. Camillo was his help in this, his pander. There is a plot against my life, my crown. All's true that is mistrusted. That false villain whom I employed was pre-employed by him. He has discovered my design, and I remain a pinched thing, yea, a very trick for them to play at will.
Since Leontes had commanded Camillo to poison Polixenes, this creepy speech about the spider, it's even crazier than it sounds. Well, Leontes now publicly accuses his wife of being an adulteress, a bed traitor too, and orders her imprisonment. One of his lords, Antigonus, now protests and insists that the queen is absolutely innocent. And of course, this isn't going to go over with Leontes, but Antigonus becomes a key character next in the plot. So here's the exchange there where Antigonus is reluctant to believe any of this and gives us some more numbers that I don't know what to do with. Here's our seventh clip.
Be certain what you do, sir, lest your justice prove violence, in the which three great ones suffer, yourself, your queen, your son. If it prove she's otherwise, I'll keep my stables where I lodge my wife. I'll go in couples with her. than when I feel and see her no farther trust her. For every inch of woman in the world, aye, every dram of woman's flesh is false. If she be...
Hold your peace.
It is for you we speak, not for ourselves. You are abused, and by some putter on that will be damned for it. But when I knew the villain, I would land damn him. Be she honour flawed. I have 3 daughters. The eldest is 11, the second and the third 9, and some 5. If this be true, they'll pay for it by my honour. I'll geld them all. 14 shall they not see, to bring false generations. They are co-heirs. I'd rather glib myself than they should produce fair issue.
Cease. No more. You smell this business with a sense as cold as is a dead man's nose, but I do see it and feel it as you feel doing thus, and see withal the instruments that feel.
So these daughters, 11, 9, and 5, sounds like somebody specific he has in mind, or is there something else going on there? Somebody email me someday if you ever figure out what's that about, because I have not found any commentary on it specific. Well, Leontes has sent 2 lords to sacred Delphos, to Apollo's temple, to consult the oracle to find out the absolute truth, or really, so that he can confirm publicly what he suspects. And here again, traditional Shakespeareans say that Shakespeare is a nit again because he doesn't know that it's supposed to be Delphi. Well, wrong once more. In the early 17th century, the island famous in antiquity as Delos, the sacred birthplace of Apollo, was commonly known as Delphos. The oracle of Delphi was certainly more famous, but it seems to have been forgotten that in literature, one of the most famous descriptions of the oracle was Delian, not Delphic. So Shakespeare knows again, in the state of knowledge of his own time, what's what. Okay, now we've got Paulina or Paulina, take your pick. You hear it both ways everywhere, who is a wife to the Lord Antigonus, and she's a pretty fierce personality of her own. Is outraged at what Leontes is doing, and she is absolutely committed to her lady, Hermione. We find out that Hermione has given birth now, and Paulina, goes to visit the jail and has a thought that maybe here's a way of getting through to Leontes. So here she is in our 8th clip.
I dare be sworn, these dangerous, unsafe loans of the king beshrew them. He must be told on it, and he shall. The office becomes a woman best. I'll take it upon me. If I prove honey-mouthed, let my tongue blister, and never to my red-looked anger be the trumpet any more. Pray you, Amelia, commend my best obedience to the queen. If she dares trust me with her little babe, I'll show it the king and undertake to be her advocate to the loudest. We do not know how he may soften at the sight of the child. The silence often of pure innocence persuades when speaking fails.
When Oxford came back from Italy in 1576, he wanted nothing to do with his wife, the daughter that was born while he was gone, or the entire family. This Paulina character is not in the sources, but there is one in Oxford's life. It was Catherine, Duchess of Suffolk, and she was the mother of Peregrine Bertie, who was Oxford's brother-in-law. She had the same notion that if this daughter, Elizabeth Vere, were presented to the Earl of Oxford somehow, that he might soften. Well, it's not going to work for Paulina, and it didn't work for the Duchess either. It wasn't considered successful. And along Leontes' insistences here too, there is the relevance to Elizabeth, because since the Catholic Church didn't acknowledge the marriage of Henry VIII to Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth was considered a bastard as well. All right, so Leontes now suffers from insomnia, like Brutus, Macbeth, Richard III, and others, and he thinks perhaps burning his wife will help. Say that she were gone, given to the fire, a moiety of my rest might come to me again. So killing someone as a sleep aid is his notion. I don't know. I mean, ask Macbeth about that, maybe. Well, a servant brings news that Mamilius, though he's taken ill, seems to have stabilized right now. Paulina does arrive with the infant, and it's not good. He didn't want to see her, especially. He berates Antigonus for not controlling his wife. He still insists that the infant is a bastard and he's not going to raise the kid. And he calls Paulina Dame Partlet, which the footnote here and the same reference in Henry IV, Part 1, when Falstaff levels it at Mistress Quickly, Dame Partlet. The footnote says this is a traditional name for a hen. And I keep running out of Tylenol. What is a traditional name for a hen in Stratford or Colfax, Washington? It's either your chick chick or Sunday dinner. Dame Partlet is not a traditional name for a hen. It comes from Chaucer's Nun's Priest's Tale, a story of two chickens, Chanticleer and Pertelote, and it's a mock epic there. So it's a poetic tradition, just a little side fit that I have to have every once in a while. Well, Paulina leaves, but convinced that Antigonus bears responsibility for this outrage, Leontes commands him to burn the infant, or else he's going to wipe out the entire family, and he'll bash the baby's brains out himself. Well, after a moment, Leontes backs off enough to allow Antigonus instead to expose the infant far from Sicilia. So wolves and bears and buzzards can take care of the problem instead, as long as he doesn't have to see this. I'll not rear another's issue, he says. And perhaps here in this little female baby, Shakespeare is once again reminding Elizabeth that she was an outcast too. Those lords that were sent to the oracle, they're gone now for 23 days, it's announced, and they're on their way back. And there's another 23, which could have been anything, completely arbitrary. At the beginning of Act 3, we meet these two guys. They have a brief exchange about the oracle, hoping that it'll clear up Hermione and the entire issue. Please, again, with that language. Well, in the second scene, Hermione's on trial. Leontes insists that because this is all being done public, it shows that he's not a tyrant at all. And there is some trouble here in that we got another extraneous mention that Hermione not only is the daughter of a king, but later on will say, the Emperor of Russia was my father. What's that doing in there? Rima Greenhill will no doubt tell us, and we'll have much to say on that one too, because it's got the Russian connection. Similar to the trial of Mary Queen of Scots, Hermione's charged with treason, adultery, conspiracy, but again, there's another trial that I want to think about at another time. And like Hermione here, Mary Queen of Scots bitterly commented that she had no representation, no lawyers were allowed, and she had the double binding of not being believed before this trial ever began. So she was prejudged, and the whole thing is a travesty of justice, as in is this one. So here is a bit of the initial trial from Act 3, clip number 9.
This sessions to our great grief we pronounce, even pushes against our heart. The party tried, the daughter of a king, our wife, and one of us too much beloved. Let us be cleared of being tyrannous, since we so openly proceed in justice, which shall have due course, even to the guilt or the purgation. Produce the prisoner.
Since what I am to say must be but that which contradicts my accusation, and the testimony on my part no other but what comes from myself, it shall scarce boot me to say not guilty. Mine integrity being counted falsehood, shall, as I express it, be so received. But thus, if powers divine behold our human actions, as they do, I doubt not then, but innocence shall make false accusation blush, and tyranny tremble at patience. You, my lord, best know, who least will seem to do so, my past life hath been as continent, as chaste, as true, as I am now unhappy, which is more than history can pattern, though devised and played to take spectators. For behold me, a fellow of the royal bed, which owe a moiety of the throne, a great king's daughter, the mother to a hopeful prince, here standing to prate and talk for life and honour, for who please to come and hear. For life I prize it, as I weigh grief, which I would spare. For honour, 'tis a derivative from me to mine, and only that I stand for. I appeal to your own conscience, sir. Before Polixenes came to your court, how I was in your grace, how merited to be so. Since he came, with what encounter so uncurrent I have strained to appear thus. If one jot beyond the bound of honour, or in act or will that way inclining, hardened be the hearts of all that hear me, and my nearest of kin cry fie upon my grave.
Well, hey everybody, the oracle's here. Yay. Oracles are traditionally characteristically vague all the time. So it's like a fortune cookie where you'll read, "Oh, you will soon have interesting financial news." Oh, am I screwed? Am I winning the lotto? What is interesting about it? How soon? Always very vague. Not this one. Here it is. Hermione's chaste, Polixenes blameless, Camillo is a true subject, Leontes is a jealous tyrant, the innocent babe is truly begotten, and the king shall live without an heir, if that which is lost be not found. Well, it's almost comically blunt, and a servant enters then, saying trepidatiously that Mamilius has died. And the thought before was that he was ill, Leontes said, because he was just ashamed of his mother. But now the kid is dead. Hermione faints, and Paulina tells Leontes she's probably dying. And he thinks, no, her heart is overcharged. It's just too much drama here. But also, with comic speed, his madness is suddenly gone. It's too sudden to make any sense. But nevertheless, he, from this point on, will have total regret for what he's done. The conversion is complete. So here's our 10th clip showing that.
Apollo, pardon my great profaneness against thine oracle. I'll reconcile me to Polixenes, new woo my queen, but call the good Camillo, whom I proclaim a man of truth, of mercy. For being transported by my jealousies to bloody thoughts and revenge, I chose Camillo for the minister to poison my friend Polixenes, which had been done, but that the good mind of Camillo tarded my swift command. Though I with death and with reward did threaten and encourage him, not doing it and being done. He most humane and filled with honour, to my kingly guest unclasped my practice, quit his fortunes here, which you knew great, and to the hazard of all uncertainties himself commended, no richer than his honour. How he glisters thorough my rust, and how his pity, as my deeds, make the blacker.
Woe the while! Oh, cut my lace, lest my heart, cracking it, break too.
Hermione, unconscious, has been carried off. Very quickly, Paulina comes back in and declares that she has died. And then Paulina joins the ranks of those who rail, in this case, of course, at Leontes. So here's her fit at him, deserved, and our 11th clip.
Studied torments tyrant has for me, huh? What wheels, racks, fires, what flaying, boiling in leads and oils, what old or newer torture must I receive, whose every word deserves to taste of thy most worst? Thy tyranny, together working with thy jealousies, fancies too weak for boys, too green and idle for girls of 9. Oh, think what they have done, and then run mad indeed, stark mad. For all thy bygone fooleries were but spices of it, that thou betrayedst Polixenes. 'Twas nothing, but did but show thee of a fool, inconstant and damnable ingrateful. Nor was it much. Thou wouldst have poisoned good Camillo's honour, to have him kill a king. Poor trespasses, more monstrous, standing by. Wherefore I reckon the casting forth to crows thy baby daughter to be none or little, though a devil would have shed water out of fire ere done it. Nor is it directly laid to thee the death of the young prince, whose honourable thoughts high for one so tender, cleft the heart that could conceive a gross and foolish sire, blemished his gracious dam. This is not, no, laid to thy answer, but the last. O lords, when I have said, cry woe. The queen, the sweetest, dearest creature's dead, and vengeance for it not dropped down yet. I say she's dead. I'll swear it. If word nor oath prevail not, go and see. If you can bring tincture or lustre to her lip, her eye, heat outwardly, or breath within, I'll serve you as I would do the gods. But, O thou tyrant, do not repent these things, for they are heavier than all thy woes can stir. Therefore betake thee to nothing but despair. 1,000 knees, 10,000 years together, naked, fasting, upon a barren mountain, and still winter, in storm perpetual, could not move the gods to look that way thou wert.
Penitent Leontes agrees to visit the chapel daily and drench it in tears. That's going to be his recreation. So the dude has clearly been watching Much Ado About Nothing for that idea. All right, now, what about the baby? Too late, and it's off to the seacoast of Bohemia, which gave Ben Jonson fits because there is no such thing as a seacoast of Bohemia. Although, once again, yes, there has been a seacoast of Bohemia for some years in the 13th century, and then in the later 16th century, the King of Bohemia and Hungary had a small parcel of seacoast. Anyway, the debate over this trivia ends with Marjorie Garber of Harvard saying, ingenious critics have consulted old maps to demonstrate that Bohemia once did have a seacoast, but the phrase the seacoast of Bohemia has entered the language as an equivalent of Never Never Land, a place of utopian possibility. The seacoast of Bohemia. Like when I say, I won a gold medal at the Olympics, and someone says, oh, you are so seacoast of Bohemia. Come on, I've never heard this phrase outside this play. Has anybody? What is wrong with these people? Well, anyway, Antigonus is on the stormy shore, and he's got the babe who he's supposed to leave behind there. He reports that he had a dream of the dead Hermione giving him some instructions here, and that might be a bit of a conflict with where we end up much later on, because she's got to be a ghost, right? In any case, here is the delightful Antigonus and his famous exit in our 12th clip.
Oh, babe. I have heard, but not believed, the spirits of the dead may walk again. If such things be, thy mother appeared to me last night, and there was a dream so like a waking. It to me becomes a creature, sometimes a head on one side, some another. I never saw a vessel of such sorrow, so filled, so becoming, in pure white robes, like very sanctity. She did approach my cabin where I lay, thrice bowed before me, and gasping to begin some speech, her eyes became two spouts. The fury spent. Anon did this break from her. Good Antigonus, since fate against thy better disposition hath made thy person for the thrower out of my poor babe, according to thine oath, places remote enough are in Bohemia. There weep, leave it crying, and for the babe is counted lost forever. Perdita, I prithee God. For this ungentle business put upon thee by my lord, thou ne'er shalt see thy wife Paulina more. And so with shrieks she mentioned it into air, affrighted much. I did in time collect myself, and thought this was so, and no slumber. Dreams are toys. Yet For this once, yea, superstitiously, I will be squared by this. I do believe Hermione suffered death, and that Apollo would, for this indeed being the issue of King Polixenes, it should here be laid, either for life or death, upon the earth of its right father. Oh, Blossom, speed thee well. There lie, and there thy character. There these, which may, if fortune please, both breed thee pretty, and still rest I. Oh, the storm begins. Oh, wretch, that for thy mother's fault art thus exposed to loss and what may follow. Weep I not, but my heart bleeds, and most accursed am I to be by oath enjoined to this. Farewell. The day frowns more and more. I'd like to have a lullaby too rough. I never saw the heavens so dim by day. A savage clamour. Well, may I get aboard? And here's the chase. I am lost forever.
Don't ask me. All right. A shepherd enters complaining about youths between the ages of 10 and 23. This is the third time we hear arbitrarily 23. But he chances upon this infant and decides he's going to adopt this. His son, a clown figure, enters, just named Clown, who reports witnessing the shipwreck and the deaths of the entire crew, and Antigonus being mauled by a bear. A bear tore out his shoulder bone, he specifies. Well, the shepherd reports, hey, look here, here's a baby, but there's fairy gold in there too. And a little note, so we just have to keep this all a secret. If we shut up about this, we've got it made. Pretty good interpretation of this, or intriguing one anyway, has the shepherd and clown representing John Shakespeare and his son William. And if that's the case, then Perdita, in the hands of them, adopted by a foster family, it's tempting to see her as representing the works of Shakespeare. Like, who's going to adopt them? Who's going to own them? And is it going to be the clown Shakespeare, who also receives gold, of course, wealth from it? The elder Odburns brought this up. But best of all, our Leontes today, Charles Beauclerk, in Shakespeare's Lost Kingdom, makes much more of that as an interpretation of this, and I think some other plays too, where these daughters, if you think about them as texts or the plays themselves, the works, and whose hands they end up in, or some of the other dynamics, it's pretty compelling. Well, now we have a big transition of 16 years, and the in the transition, we have time coming on this stage, or at least a character serving as a chorus, saying that I come in the name of time. So if you're in the name of time, you're not time. Apologizing for the fact that we are just blowing to heck the Aristotelian unities. We're going to jump ahead. We're going to go over here, and I'm in control of all this. Excuse it. There's nothing you can do about it. So time is the artist, almost the playwright, it seems here. Uh, and other than that, it's another artificial insertion, difficult to reconcile with some kind of logical read of the play. But in any case, during these 16 years, Leontes has become a recluse. Perdita has grown into a 16-year-old, I guess. And Florizel, the son of Polixenes, now that we're in Bohemia, has become smitten with this shepherd girl. Meanwhile, at court, Polixenes has Camillo, who returned with him long ago, um, wants to accompany him in disguise to visit this shepherd's home and find out why his son is hanging around there all the time. And we also have a springtime festival for the country, seasonal joy and trotting around now that spring has come upon us again. And an introduction of a new character, and this is Autolycus. He is a petty thief and a con man. He says he was once in the employ of Florizel, but later on Florizel has never seen him before, so it certainly seems like this is another character, not in even the fake source, Pandosto, that has been added in a revision. And it makes sense that it would be when we find out more of his doings and what he represents. He calls himself, identifies himself as Autolycus, and says, "My traffic is sheets." Well, he sells a lot of junk too, but sheets, he means pages, ballots we'll see too. And yet, we think in terms of pages, not as cloth or just ballots, but also pages, like real pages. He's a broker and a seller of these things, not the author of these things. So this becomes intriguing for the identity crisis of Shakespeare. As I say, he doesn't appear in the source, which I don't believe is a source. And Homer's Autolycus is the grandfather of Odysseus. He was a thief. Ovid's Autolycus is the son of Hermes, Mercury. Mercury is the god of thieves and messengers and merchants, which indicates a rather shifty attitude about merchants, of course. And I would say that Autolycus, auto is self, right? And Lecus, like Lekion, is related to wolf. But in Anglo-Saxon, you have Beowulf. Um, the wolf part is the demonized animal that in Western culture we're suspicious of. So Beowulf translates as bee enemy. And what's the enemy of a bee? Well, you put it together as a kenning in Anglo-Saxon, and it's a bear. And Beowulf fights with his bear grip. Autolycus, auto wolf or auto enemy, would be enemy of the self. And this gets very convoluted when we think of him and his doings and who he identifies as, and then his shifting identity too. So this character, Autolycus, encounters the shepherd's son trying to make some financial calculations on wool sales and getting ready for this big celebration. And Autolycus says that he's got a sucker right here that he can cheat, and so he pretends that he has been robbed. Here is Autolycus trying to con the son of the shepherd in our 13th clip.
Oh, 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 help me, help me, help me. Pluck men off these rags and death, death. Oh, sir, the loathsomeness of them offends me more than the stripes I've received. Oh, which are almighty ones, and millions. I'm robbed, sir. I'm beaten. My money and apparel taken from me, and these detestable things put upon me by a footman. Oh, sir, sweet sir, a footman. Oh, 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 good sir, tenderly. Oh, 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 sir, my shoulder's blade is out. Oh, softly, sir, softly. Oh, dear sir, softly, softly. You have done me a charitable service. Oh.
That reference to his shoulder blade is another bit of randomness, but it justifies us in resurrecting Antigonus, I guess, for this character, who you remember was mauled by a bear and had his shoulder blade ripped out. Well, the pocket is picked there, so good luck, son of shepherd, at the fair. And Autolycus continues the con by describing the fellow who robbed him and changed clothes with him. Right away, here is our 14th clip.
A fellow, sir, that I've known to go about with trauma dames. I knew him once as a servant of the prince. I can't tell, good sir, for which of his virtues it was, but he was certainly whipped out of court. Oh, vices, I would say. Well, I know this man well. He has been since an ape bearer, then a process server, then a bailiff. Then he compassed the motion of the prodigal son and married a tinker's wife. Oh, within a mile of where I have my land and living lies. And having flown over many knavish professions, he settled only on rogue. Some call him Autolycus.
That resume sounds an awful lot like Oxford's assessment of Shakespeare, similar to the one you get of Christopher Sly in Taming. Anyway, Autolycus decides he's going to pick some more pockets and go rip off people at the sheep shearing festival, where we join these young people, Florizel and Perdita. In our next clip, Perdita, doesn't recognize her true identity. And so when you hear a lot of language, like they use the word queen quite a bit, they don't recognize what we pick up on in this discussion. Florizel praises her. She is very gracious and modest about it all, too. So let's meet them. They become key for this next generation in our 15th clip here.
These your unusual weeds to each part of you do give a life, no shaverness, but flower appearing in April's front. This your ship hearing is a meeting of the petty gods, and you the queen on it.
Oh, my gracious lord, to chide at your extremes it not becomes me. Oh, pardon that I name them. Your high self, the gracious mark of the land, you have obscured with a swain's wearing, and me, poor lowly maid, most goddess-like, pranked up, but that our feasts in every mess have folly, and the feeders digest it with a custom. I should blush to see you so attired, sworn, I think, to show myself a glass.
I bless the time when my good falcon made a flight across thy father's ground.
Sir, the year's growing ancient, not yet on summer's death, nor on the birth of trembling winter. The fairest flowers of the season are our carnations and streaked gillivores, which some call nature's bastards of that kind, are rustic garden barren, and I care not to get slips of them.
Wherefore, gentle maiden, do you neglect them?
For I have heard it said there is an art which in their piedness shares with great creating nature.
Say there be. Yet nature is made better by no mean, but nature makes that mean. So over an art which you say adds to nature is an art that nature makes. You see, sweet maid, we marry a gentler scion to the wildest stock, to conceive a bark of baser kind by bud of nobler race. This is an art which does mend nature, change it rather, but the art itself is nature.
So it is.
Then make your garden rich in gillivores, and do not call them bastards.
I'll not put the dibble in earth to set one slip of them. No more than were I painted I would wish this youth should say, 'Twere well, and only therefore desired to breed by me. Here's flowers for you, hot lavender mints, savory marjoram, the marigold that goes to bed with the sun, and with him rises weeping. These are flowers of middle summer, and I think they are given to men of middle age. You're very welcome. Now, my fairest friend, I would I had some flowers of the spring that might become your time of day, and yours, that wear upon your virgin branches yet your maidenhead's growing. O Proserpina, for the flowers now that frighted thou lest fall from dis wagon, daffodils that come before the swallow dares, and take the winds of March with beauty, violets dim, but sweeter than the lids of Juno's eyes, or Cythera's breath, pale primroses that die unmarried, ere they can behold bright Phoebus's in his strength, a milady most incident to maids, bold ox lips, and the crown imperial, lilies of all kinds, flowers deluce being one. Oh, these I lack to make your garlands of, and my sweet friend to strew 'em o'er and o'er.
I couldn't tell you how an uneducated daughter of an uneducated shepherd knows so much about classical mythology, like Proserpina, and dropping names like Phoebus. Then I remember, oh, she's royal, so it's innate and instinctive. So she's going to be the mistress of the feast and charm everyone, which she does, giving out flowers. Autolycus arrives, he's charming everyone and selling his wares. We get a few ballads and a performance, and we all enjoy the dance of the 12 satyrs, although that's often cut out of performances because it's already ponderously long, this scene. And we hear more about Perdita and her queenly behavior, or that she seems, to be above all of this, and she's got a lovely white hand. That's usually a signal in Shakespeare. In any case, though, the disguised daddy, Polixenes, realizes what's going on with Florizel wooing this lowly peasant girl. And so he's going to interrupt those proceedings and have his fit, being a bit tyrannical, kind of like Leontes. So here's our 16th clip with that unveiling.
What you do still betters what is done. When you speak, sweet, I'd have you do it ever. When you sing, I'd have you buy and sell so. So give alms, pray so, and for the ordering your affairs, to sing them too. When you dance, I wish you away or sea, that you might ever do nothing but that. Move still, still so, and owe no other function. Each you're doing, so singular in each particular, crowns what you're doing in the present deed, that all your acts are queens.
Mark your divorce, young sir, whom son I dare not call. Thou art too base to be acknowledged. Thou, a scepter's heir, that thus affects a sheep's hook? Thou, old traitor, I am sorry that by hagging thee I can but shorten thy life 1 week. And thou, fresh piece of excellent witchcraft, who of force must know the royal fool thou copest with, I'll have thy beauty scratched with briars and made more homely than thy state. For thee, fond boy, if ever I may know thou dost but sigh that thou no more shalt see this gnat, as never I mean thou shalt, we'll bar thee from succession, not hold thee of our blood, no, not our kin, far than Deucalion off. Mark thou my words. Follow us to the court, thou churl. For this time, though full of our displeasure, yet we free thee from the dead blow of it. And you, enchantment, worthy enough a herdsman, yea, him too, that makes himself but for our honor therein unworthy thee. If ever henceforth thou these rural latches to his entrance open, or hoop his body more with thy embraces, I will devise a death as cruel for thee as thou art tender to it.
Here undone. I was not much afeard for once or twice. I was about to speak to him plainly. The selfsame sun that shines upon his court hides not his visage from our cottage, but looks on alike. Will it please you, sir, be gone? I told you what would come of this. Beseech you, of your own state take care. This dream of mine being now awake, I'll queen it no inch farther, but milk my ewes and weep.
I'll queen it no inch farther. Well, yes, you will once you find out your true identity. Autolycus enters, gloating off the suckers he's fleeced and calling the people the herd. And he refers to the throng who should buy first, trying to get his wares, as if my trinkets had been hallowed and bought a benediction to the buyer. That is Chaucer's pardoner, by the way. Well, Camillo tries to get these young lovers disguised and says, all right, scurry along for your own safety. And he bargains for clothes and swaps with Autolycus. And so Autolycus is now dressed like a courtier. And Camillo wants to convince Polixenes to go to Sicilia anyway, because he wants to see his homeland again too. So we're all going to try to converge back there eventually. Autolycus is out trotting around pretending to be a courtier, and the shepherd and his son have gotten the wrath of Polixenes too. So they're desperate for help, and they see this guy and thinks, oh, maybe this courtier can help. Are you a courtier? And here's Autolycus in another one of his identities here in our 17th clip.
Whether it like me or no, I am a courtier. Or seest thou not the air of the court in these enfoldings? Ye hath not my gait in it, the measure of the court. Receives not thy nose court odour from me? Reflect I not on thy baseness court contempt? Thinkest thou, for that I insinuate or toze from thee thy business, I am therefore no courtier? I am courtier, cap a pay, and one that will either push on or pluck back. There thy business. Whereupon I command thee to open thy affair.
All right, well, Autolycus, through fear tactics, is going to get money out of these rubes again. And they recognize that he must be a nobleman because, look, he's picking on his teeth. He's got a toothpick. And that then sophisticated, now disgusting habit was apparently something that Oxford was an affectation of his. And I don't know. We've got more identity oddities with that character, of course, there. So Autolycus can gloat over his good fortunes again. Act 5. Back in Sicilia, Leontes is still tormented by his former madness, and Paulina is lightened up a bit, but is still after him for make sure he maintains his guilt. Here's what gets exchanged between them as we rejoin Leontes in this fossilized condition. 18th clip.
Whilst I remember her and her virtues, I cannot forget my blemishes in them. and so still think of the wrong I did myself, which was so much that airless it hath made my kingdom, and destroyed the sweetest companion that e'er man bred his hopes out of.
True, too true, my lord. If one by one you wedded all the world, or from the all that are you took some good to make a perfect woman, she you killed would be unparalleled.
I think so. Killed. She I killed. I did so. But thou strikest me sorely to say I did. 'Tis as bitter upon thy tongue as in my thought. Now, good now, say so but seldom.
There is none worthy respecting her that's gone. Besides, the gods will have fulfilled their secret purposes. For has not the divine Apollo said, is it not the tenor of his oracle that King Leontes shall not have an heir till his lost child be found? Which, that it shall, it is all as monstrous to human reason as my antagonist to break his grave and come again to me, who on my life did perish with the infant. 'Tis your counsel, my lord, should to the heavens be contrary, oppose against their wills, care not for issue, the crown will find an heir.
If one by one you wedded all the world, well, Henry VIII wedded one by one and kept doing it. And the crown will find an heir. Succession issue is always a concern, but we've got that assurance. Anyway, Florizel and Perdita show up in Leontes' court and present themselves. We don't know who Perdita is yet, but Polixenes' son Florizel says in this elaborate lie that, yeah, we're here. He doesn't really make a big deal about how daddy disapproves of this union. We're here because we took a trip through Libya. Yeah, that's the ticket. That's why Perdita looks so Libyan. Right. Well, Leontes says, that girl reminds me of my late wife. And he's going to try to make peace with Polixenes. In the second to last scene, weird. We've got Autolycus gleaning some facts from some of the gentlemen who witnessed what was happening at Leontes' palace, and we don't get to see it ourselves. I would gladly know the issue of it, he says. Ah, if truth were pregnant by circumstance, and please, people, do not start that again. Well, anyway, turns out the oracle is fulfilled, Perdita is found, the reconciliation we don't get to see. And why is that? Some people say that Shakespeare learned from Pericles that when you have too many recognition scenes at the end, it's too much for people or something's going to be anticlimactic. But this one he canceled or revised or buried somehow. In other words, at the end of Pericles, you got the recognition of the daughter and the wife. At the end of Comedy of Errors, you get those kinds of multiple recognitions too. But it's just odd that the emotional meeting of Leontes and Polixenes and all the other revelations we don't get. Instead, we hear that, oh, everybody's going to go see a statue. It was done by that rare Italian master, Giulio Romano, who just was so excellent at sculpture that he makes nature seem inferior to his skill. Well, it's an anachronism, presumably, because Giulio Romano is an early mid 16th century artist, especially active in Mantua. And there's a debate about what Shakespeare does know and doesn't know. Again, the Stratfordians say he's got it wrong, and then it turns out no, he knows what you would know only if you had been at the right place at the right time in Italy, which Oxford was. Well, it turns out that the shepherd and his son have benefited from everybody's happiness here. They apparently shipped over too. And Autolycus reflects finally at the fact that he has done some good. These two clowns, though, they're constantly insisting that they're newly made gentlemen and they call themselves gentlemen born. Well, you're not a gentleman born, but they keep saying that they are. And it is kind of a dorky grasping for status, similar to Shakespeare trying to get that coat of arms. Well, here's Autolycus regretting that he did good for somebody, but so it goes in our 19th clip.
Now, had I not the dash of my former life in me, would preferment drop on my head. Well, I brought the old man and his son aboard the Prince. Told him I heard him talk of a father and, well, I don't know what. But he, at that time, over fond of the shepherd's daughter. So he took her to be, who began to be much seasick. And he himself little better the extremity of weather continuing. This mystery remained undiscovered. But, now, 'tis all one to me. For had I been to find her out of this secret, it would not have relished with my former discredits.
Okay, last scene. Well, now we're all wandering through this gallery and we've seen some art and all, but what we came for is what we really want to see now. So here's Leontes, Paulina, and others witnessing a surprise bit of art in our clip number 20.
Oh, Paulina, we honor you with trouble, but we came to see the statue of our queen. Your gallery have we passed through, not without much content in many singularities, but we saw not that which my daughter came to look upon, the statue of her mother.
As she lived peerless, so her dead likeness, I do well believe, excels whatever you looked upon or hand of man hath done. Therefore I keep it lonely, apart. But here it is. Prepare to see the life as lively mocked as ever still sleep mocked death. Behold, and say 'tis well. I like your silence. It the more shows off your wonder. But yet speak. First you, my liege. Comes it not something near?
Her natural posture. Chide me, dear stone, that I may say indeed, thou art Hermione. Or rather, thou art she in thy not chiding, for she was as tender as infancy and grace. But yet, Paulina, Hermione was not so much wrinkled. Nothing so aged as this seems.
Oh, not by much.
So much the more our carver's excellence, which lets go by some 16 years and makes her as she lived now.
Give me leave, and do not say 'tis superstition that I kneel and then implore her blessing. Lady, dear queen, that ended when I but began, give me that hand of yours to kiss.
Giulio Romano must have used AI to age that statue. So that's a wonder. Pay attention, though, to remember at the beginning where Leontius was saying too hot about what he perceived to be lust between his wife and Polixenes. Now we're hearing that the statue coldly stands, and here coming up, we're going to hear right in the middle where it belongs about warmth, warm life. Well, statues were in fact painted at the time. There was one of Queen Elizabeth, but in any case, there's more wonder to be had, and Paulina now does the big reveal in clip number 21.
Either forbear, quit presently the chapel, or resolve you for more amazement. If you can behold it, I'll make the statue move. Indeed, descend and take you by the hand. But then you'll think, which I protest against, I am assisted by wicked powers. 'Tis time. Descend. Be stone no more. Approach. Strike all that look upon with marvel. Come. I'll fill your grave up. Stir. Nay, come away. Bequeath to death your numbness. For from him, dear life redeems you. You perceive she stirs. Start not. Her action shall be holy, as you hear my spell is lawful. Do not shun her until you see her die again, for then you kill her double. Nay, present your hand. When she was young, you wooed her. Now in age, is she become the suitor?
Oh, she's warm. If this be magic, let it be an art lawful as eating.
She embraces him. Make it manifest where she has lived, or how stolen from the dead.
That she is living, were it but told you, should be hooted at like an old tale. But it appears she lives, though yet she speak not. Mark, a little while. Please you to interpose, fair madam. Kneel and pray your mother's blessing. Good lady, our Perdita is found.
You gods, look down, and from your sacred vials pour your graces upon my daughter's head. Tell me, mine own, where hast thou been preserved? Where lived? How found thy father's court? For thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue.
What's the explanation? Undecided. Most people insist that she's been alive the whole time. In the previous scene, the gentlemen were saying, hey, didn't we see Paulina visiting that gallery like 2 or 3 times a day? And it would be nice if they had reported that she was carrying some taco bell bags or something, but we don't know. Earl Showerman discusses the connection to the Euripides play Alcestis for this kind of reanimation or statue resurrection scene. But in any case, it is quite effective, emotionally effective when you do see this. And even if this whole ending is part of a revision, and even Isaac Asimov says it's kind of imperfectly patched on that way, still, It's a reasonably satisfactory ending to this play. Now, Mamilius is still dead, but the core of this family, father, mother, and daughter, I think is really what Shakespeare was going for. And I'll explain that in a minute after this final bit, last clip of Leontes. Now, Paulina, if she's sneaking off to feed a statue 3 times a day, has not had time to date. We remember that Antigonus lost his life to the bear long ago, and so maybe she's considered a loose end in the plot. So here's the final Leontes lines from The Winter's Tale, clip 22.
O peace, Paulina, thou shouldst a husband take by my consent, as I by thine, a wife. This is a match and made between us by vows. Thou hast found mine. But how is to be questioned? For I saw her, as I thought, dead, and have in vain said many a prayer upon her grave. I'll not seek far, for him I partly know his mind, to find thee an honourable husband. Come, Camillo, and take her by the hand, whose worth and honesty is richly noted and here justified by us, a pair of kings. Let's from this place. What? Look upon my brother. Both your pardons, that ere I put between your holy looks my ill suspicion. This is your son-in-law, and son unto the king, who, heaven's directing, is troth plight to your daughter. Good Paulina, lead us from hence, where we may leisurely each one demand an answer to his part performed in this wide gap of time since first we were dissevered. Hastily lead away.
All right, now, what have I been hinting at all along? What have I been saying? I need to show you some more art. So I need to share screen. And I hope this is working, right? Okay, what do we have in The Winter's Tale? But we have a tyrannical, crazed king who puts his wife on trial for infidelity. In fact, there are some specifics. Kissing with inside lip is mentioned, and that was part of the accusation against Anne Boleyn, who ends up dying, being killed in that case. You've got a young boy involved, this is Mamilius, but also Edward VI, who died young too, leaving Elizabeth, the Perdita character, eventually to be the dedicatee of this and so many other Shakespeare plays. Yeah, Delahoyde Peachy, but aren't you leaving out some people? Yes, as they did. So here is so-called allegory of the Tudor succession, where at the center you have Henry VIII. To his left, to our right, is little Edward. Further to our right is Queen Elizabeth, accompanied by peace and prosperity and those kinds of pleasant abstractions. To the left, sinister side for us, is the Catholic Mary Tudor and Philip of Spain, bringing in war and misery and strife. So what we've done is, in this play, focused on what I would say is allegorically representing the key family that we want to acknowledge, the Protestants, and literally marginalizing out of existence the undesirable. Here is another work of art with Henry at the center. There's Prince Edward too, and Jane Seymour. And there's our happy family. What's wrong with this? Could never have happened. Jane Seymour died way before Edward even looked like a human being like this. And so what we've done here is fantasized this family back together in art, which is where you can do it. So isn't this likely what Shakespeare is saying to Elizabeth and showing what art can do? Elizabeth, Perdita, gets to see that Daddy really did love Mommy, and he's very, very sorry for killing her. And Mommy comes back, and Auntie Pauline assures us the crown will find an heir, and everybody is reasonably happy. I think it's a pretty daring type of therapy, if you can imagine the effect of this on Elizabeth. And it also makes sense that it would have that dreamlike quality at the end because it is a fantasy, but it's a very touching one if you consider what this psychologist has to say. Anybody who has suffered a bereavement can tell you what a tumult of distress and rapture can be stirred up by an unexpected snapshot, the sight of a face in a crowd, or a retreating figure which looks as it might just have been the dead beloved. It can take years for this propensity to die with the dead. It is a radical ingredient in the human soul, and you will follow that retreating figure, knowing perfectly well that you're cultivating a delusion, yet preferring that delusion to anything the world can offer you in the way of solid reality. It is enough to feel again what you have been prevented for so long by brute fact from feeling. What you have feared you may never feel again. That it is almost pure pain is negligible. Beside the heart-stopping sense of recovery and recapture, it's a pain for which you are hungry. And we know that Elizabeth carried a picture of her mother in her locket, never spoke about her mother at all. So again, I think that Shakespeare knows what he's doing in terms of therapy brilliantly. And about the bear, I don't know. Okay, now what do? We can let it go there. It's been a hefty amount of time. So, yeah, let's just roll it.